Many of us had hoped to see the level 1 exam pass rate continue to rise back up to historical norms. But with the August 2022 level 1 pass rate down just slightly now to 37%, it looks like we're gonna have to wait until next year to see if the pass rate can get back to that 40% level. And this leaves us wondering, why didn't the pass rate continue to rise? Does it have to do with a higher minimum passing score? Maybe harder questions? Or is it the candidate pool, the fact that there are far fewer candidates than typically take the level 1 exam? Or are the candidates less prepared, like the Institute said was the problem a year ago? We're gonna look at potential answers to those questions. First, quick plug for myself. If you are considering signing up for a Chase or American Express credit card, please use my referral link in the description down below. It will give us both a lot of free points when you sign up. Thanks a lot. So the CFA level 1 exam pass rate did start to rise throughout 2022 from the very low numbers posted during the pandemic. Now, I think that was mostly due to the minimum passing scores coming back down to historically normal levels, making it an easier hurdle to get over. Earlier this year, we saw a 36% pass rate, then a 38% pass rate, and the hope was that we would see another higher pass rate for this August sitting to confirm that the level 1 exam might get back up to that 40 to 43% range that it's been in through much of the last decade. And obviously, 37% is not like 42%. There's a pretty big difference there. My first thought was that the Institute must have just increased the minimum passing score back to those more difficult higher levels that they had been using throughout 2021 for whatever unknown reasons they might have. But as of the recording of this video, we don't actually have the minimum passing score estimates from 300hours.com. They haven't been published. And if you don't know, 300 Hours is the source that myself and many others always use when quoting what the minimum passing score for any CFA exam was. Let's move on to the exam difficulty then. Could it have been that the questions were just a little bit harder on average than in the first two sittings of this year? Well, I don't know. I didn't take the exam, so you guys tell me in the comments, anyone who took this August level 1 sitting, how did you feel about the difficulty of the questions on your exam relative to a lot of the practice problems, blue box examples, or mock exams that you did? I will say that after the February and May level 1 exams, many of you sent me emails or replied in comments to videos I was posting at the time saying that you felt like the exam questions were a little bit easier than many of the practice questions and mock exam questions you had done. If that trend held, that would be a good thing for level 1 candidates as a whole. It just means that you'll be practicing harder than you'll have to perform on game day, basically. But for this exam, with the pass rate showing a 1% decline, it's just hard to say if that could have been the reality. And as we talk about difficulty of questions on each exam and a 37% pass rate, it's important to discuss the relative difficulty of the level 1 exam between the level 2 and level 3 exams in general. If you watching this video are a future level 1 exam candidate, don't be too intimidated by that very low 37% pass rate, because comparatively, the level 1 exam is easier than the level 2 and level 3 tests. The reason that the level 1 exam almost always or has always carried a lower pass rate than those other two tests is because of the quality of candidates that sit for it. A certain portion of level 1 candidates for every sitting are not all that serious. Either they underestimate how difficult the exams are and don't study much, or they're just being required to sit for the exam and don't really have a long-term goal of becoming a charter holder, so they're not all too concerned if they pass or fail. Or it could just be that some of them don't quite have the aptitude that the CFA exams will take, and so they will be weeded out during the first exam. Because of any or all of those factors that will not apply to levels 2 or 3, the level 1 exam is going to always carry a lower pass rate. You're just going to have some people going in there that aren't all that serious. I'm reminded of an image that was very popular on various analyst forum threads, maybe going back to about 10 years ago now, that shows a picture of 3 dragons, and it compares each of the 3 CFA exams to one of those dragons. I'll put it up on the screen here if I can find it, but that picture to me was an over-exaggeration of the relative difficulties of these tests. I've talked about it in videos in the past, comparing level 1 to level 2 specifically. My opinion when I was taking these exams was that the level 2 exam was maybe 30 or 40% harder than the level 1 exam across the board. Definitely not like 10 times harder as some people try to describe it. So while that dragon picture is definitely an exaggeration, there is something to be said about the fact that level 1 is more of an introductory step, and levels 2 and 3 are really the tests of if someone is going to become a charter holder. All of that is to say, don't let a low 37% deter you from trying. If you're gonna be serious about it, put in enough hours and you really want it, you can definitely make it work. I'm just thinking out loud now, but I might venture to guess that of the candidates who take studying for the level 1 exam, what I'll call seriously, and I might have different criteria for that than others, but of those who take it seriously, probably it's like a 60% pass rate. And finally, maybe we just don't have a large enough sample size to make conclusions about this slightly lower pass rate than we saw in the earlier 2 exams. There were 19,000 people who took this August level 1 test, and of course that's not a small number, but if you look at this compared to CFA level 1 exam sittings of the past, it's very low. Now the gap on the chart is not quite as big as it seems visually, just because there are now 4 sittings of the level 1 test each year, whereas previously there had always been 2 sittings. So you're gonna have half as many at each of the 4. But even when you total up the 4 and compare it to the prior 2, the count of level 1 candidates is still down about 25% from where it was leading up to the pandemic. Could it be that the people who are not registering for the exams now that would have previously were maybe the most qualified candidates, meaning maybe the most successful people in finance now don't feel like the CFA program is worth it, so the upper end of the curve is falling off. Or if you applied some of the things I talked about earlier, you could even make the argument that the opposite is true and the people who probably wouldn't have passed anyway are no longer taking it, so it's a more qualified group of candidates, but because of changes the Institute has made, the questions are harder and the minimum passing score is higher, so you're still gonna get a lower pass rate. Both of those things are more speculation. I imagine a combination of them may be true. It is surprising to me though, and I'm sure to the CFA Institute when they look at the total revenues that they gross from administering their exams, that the number of candidates sitting for tests is so much lower now. Now, if watching this video, you're someone who recently passed the August level 1 exam, congratulations. That is the first big step, I think, into proving yourself in your seriousness towards becoming a charter holder for a couple of the reasons I mentioned earlier. Yeah, level 2 and 3 are harder, but especially if you passed more than just barely, if you prepare the same way you did for level 1, but just a bit more, put in more hours, you're likely going to be able to prepare well enough to get past both levels 2 and 3. So you're well on your way to becoming a charter holder. Congratulations. If you didn't pass this exam, I feel for you. I could totally see, we sincerely regret to inform you at the beginning of an email body being one of the most difficult things you might ever read in your life. So I have other videos on the channel. I would recommend to check out a couple of the videos I have on this channel about what to do after failing a CFA exam. Maybe you continue with the program, maybe you don't. It's gonna be a decision you have to make, but spend some time thinking about it before jumping to a conclusion. That's all I'll say for now. As always, thank you very much for sticking around to the end of this video. Please don't forget to like this, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you're signing up for a credit card anytime in the next year or so, please use my referral links down below, and have a good one.